Welcome to Lighten Up, the art of living clutter-free, a podcast where we tackle the literal and figurative clutter standing between you and your healthiest and happiest life. I'm Melanie, your host, coach, and guide on this journey to help you design a life that you love. Whether it's clearing out your kitchen cabinets, untangling your digital files, or letting go of the mental blocks that hold you back, we're here to make space for what truly matters. Let's lighten up together. Starting now.
Welcome back to another episode of Lighten Up, the art of living clutter-free, the place where we talk about all things clutter. And guess what? It's not always the physical clutter. And today is another one of those episodes where we're going to be talking about all the mental and emotional clutter that we have. So first, let me introduce you to my guest, and then we're going to dive in. I have Judy Kane, who is the author of Your 4 Truths: How Beliefs Impact Your Life. Judy is dedicated to helping individuals get past barriers that are keeping them stuck or causing them discomfort. She helps people identify and change the limiting, subconscious beliefs that are holding them back. Through speaking engagements, workshops, and individual client work, Judy empowers others to achieve their goals. Judy, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Okay, so I call it clutter when it comes to, the mess that is up in our brain. You call it something different. What do you call it?
Call it head trash.
I almost feel like that's one step further than clutter. Tell us how you got where you are right now. Why are you doing what you're doing? Or, how did you come to it?
Yeah, I came through it from a variety of experiences in my past. My main professional career was in IT management, and people think that's a odd thing to be coming from to be doing this, but in both cases, you're looking at a system that's not giving the results you want. And so you're finding where the thing is that needs to change so that you do get the results you want.
It's almost perfectly timed. This episode's going to drop in November, but we're recording on the day in October when Amazon Worldwide Service went berserk. And we almost were unable to record today. And I feel that's so aligned with everything that you just said. You're right. And it also speaks volumes to how reliant we are on technology. So how did you shift from IT to where you are?
Well, I saw this work. The process that I use, I saw it work on my then husband. And I was very impressed that he had a pain, and a friend said, "Let me help." And he said, "Sure." And the pain was gone in 5 minutes. It didn't come back. It was a process that it looked like I could be successful using. And it was the first time I had heard about subconscious beliefs creating physical symptoms of stress. So it was a very impactful thing, and it got me really curious. And I started looking into it more, and that was when I decided I wanted to be able to do this to help myself, to help people I knew. So I took the workshops in 2011, and then it was too good to keep to that small group. So I started my business in 2014.
Oh, it's been over a decade. That's amazing. So one of the things you make me think is I hear over and over again that our subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is true and what is not true. It only knows what we're telling it. So if we're envisioning really positive, amazing things, that's what the brain is hearing. Is this akin to that?
Well, what I do when I am explaining it to people or helping people discover what might be causing the issue that they're experiencing is talk about the fact that most of the subconscious beliefs get there by the time you're 7. And you pick them up mostly from your immediate environment, although you can get them from anywhere, and you can certainly get some later. But these form your perception. So your subconscious is nothing but a collection of perceptions, of filters that help you determine what to think about yourself and other people's and their behaviors and events. It's, perception's reality. So it is your real live experience interpreted through those beliefs. Yeah.
So your husband's path was to eliminate pain. What did it do for you? What were you looking to subconsciously shift?
Didn't know what all I would be using it for, and that was just his first experience, and it wasn't a devastate it was just a, I can't remember what it was. It was like, "I've got a headache," or, "I got a pain in my shoulder." I don't really remember back then
Right.
what it was, but, I've used it. I used to be panic-stricken when I had to speak in front of people, so I've used it for myself for that. That's been very helpful. So many conflicting money beliefs are things that I see with a lot of people where they get stalled making more money, being more successful, because not only is money a measure of success, but in a lot of families, having money also has some unhelpful connotations, right? Like you have to work really hard for it, or you don't want to be like those people who have too much, or you don't want too much because then you'd be greedy. I mean, so the subconscious will keep you, will hold you back from making more money if it thinks there's an adverse consequence to it.
Right. I think the other thing that I take away on the money thing is that we associate money with power. So if you're in a
Mm.
couple and one has, the money and one doesn't, that it can create a power struggle. So I've talked about this on the podcast, and I'll probably be talking about it a lot in the next year. And that is my own experience with generational trauma around money. I think there's also past life trauma around money. And I know not everybody believes in past life, but I do. I very strongly believe that the people I surround myself with in this time or this parallel are the people that have been with me before. And so I don't know, maybe I was the power player with the money before, which means I can do it again, right? But I talk about how I've been working through, and I have gotten to the point where I know I deserve the money. Like I am fully in on I deserve it. Next steps are do you believe you can? Because that's going to be the next, big step. How do you help someone with that?
Well, first of all, one of the coolest things, which I think aligns with all of your clutter conversations, is getting clear on what you want the result to be, right? So
Mm,
many people make decisions based on what they want to avoid instead of what they want to experience. And so clearing that vision, you know, getting all the ancillary and incidental things out of the way and get very clear on what you want is usually the first step.
It's that avoiding pain again, your husband's case, it was physical pain, but it's the mental pain. And if we're constantly focused on what we don't want, we're not working towards the thing that we do want. But
Yeah.
over and over again, as a coach, I encounter people who don't know why they want what they want or don't really know what they want. They have like a picture of what that is. But to your point, it's probably clouded by what they don't want.
Absolutely. And particularly with money, people think the money is going to solve the problem. And they haven't gone deeper to see what's the emotion they think the money is going to provide. There's something, it's not just X number of digits on a bank account statement, right? I mean, that's irrelevant. How much green paper do you have stuffed in your mattress? That has nothing to do with what you think it's going to give you.
Isn't that a part of why so many people who win the lottery, like, lose it, like, overnight? It just, like, falls through their fingers?
If they have a subconscious set of beliefs that make it possible to have and keep money, make it okay for you to have money, and think they deserve to have the money, they're more likely to be able to keep it. But if any of
Right.
those things or a constellation of other sabotaging beliefs is in there, that you can believe you don't know how to manage money. I've had people want money and then you ask them, well, are there any drawbacks? And they're going, everybody's going to want my money and I don't want those conversations.
You make me think of my grandmother dreamed of winning the lottery, and she would talk about it. And she was incredibly hardworking, and my grandfather was incredibly hardworking, and my grandfather said all the time that he did not want to win the lottery because my grandmother already had it spent plus some. that he couldn't afford it because she was going to pay for this one to have a house and this one to go to college and that one a car. And then all of a sudden, they're in debt because she won the lottery. I think it was just his way of being real. Like, you know what? You have one in a kabillion chance or whatever the number is to actually win. So tell me who comes to you. Who do you work with?
I work with people with all sorts of issues because I'm not a coach. So I don't need to know strategy or tools or behaviors that are effective for a particular type of problem. I help them change the beliefs themselves. That's what my skill set is. So, but people come if they're troubled about the way the business is going, or if they've got relationships that aren't supporting them the way they would like, or don't exist. First time I worked collaborating with a coach, she had come to me for a private session and said, "This is great. I'm going to add you to my package. And everybody who comes to me is going to get a session with you." And I thought, lovely. And that's brilliant. And that is what I do now is I collaborate with coaches to help their clients when they get stuck. But the thing she did was help people find their romantic partner. And it was so interesting to hear all the different and frequently similar reasons that people blamed that they didn't ever have successful romantic relationships, right? And so, one was the scarcity belief that there weren't appropriate people in their vicinity available for the relationship they were looking for, which if you don't think they're there, you won't see them.
No.
And so it was really interesting to have this whole series of people with that. But for the most part, it's business related. Sometimes I get phobias, people with phobias. Sometimes they come for physical symptoms of stress. It's all over the board because I don't do the very important help with strategy and tools and
Right.
that type of work for people.
Can you tell me about some of the phobias that you've worked with people with? I have someone in my life who has a phobia. I'm just wondering if I should send that person to you. So tell me about some of the phobias.
Sure. The most common have been snakes and flying. I've had a fair number of both of those. I've had driving over bridges. In fact, I had a funny one. I was working with somebody and she had a terrible fear of flying and she had a fear of driving over bridges. And she and her family were going to the West Coast and they were flying to the West Coast and driving along the coast in California. She knew she wasn't going to be the one driving, but it didn't matter. Going over the bridges was just terrifying to her. So we got rid of those phobias before they went. And when she got back, I said, "How'd it go?" And she said, "The flight was great. My family was surprised. I wasn't freaking out. I was very calm. Didn't bother me. Drove over the bridges, no problem." She said, I forgot that I'm also afraid of driving along cliffs."
I was going to say that if you're driving, having lived in Southern California, there are two options for driving north. You can drive the 5, which goes through the lettuce farms and everything as you get further north, or you can take 101, which it takes so much longer. Or
Yeah.
Pacific Coast Highway. It takes so much longer, but it's so beautiful. But you cannot
That's the one
be
they did.
afraid of the cliffs. The only people who take the 5 are like people who, I just need to get there. They're not tourists.
Well, and the 5 is like a caterpillar, right? It's hurry up, slow down, hurry up. It can be stop and go at times, which
Yes.
is really annoying to me.
Yes. That's amazing to hear because I think those are probably, snakes and planes. It just made me think of the Samuel L. Jackson movie, Snakes on a Plane. It's like you just combined the two biggest phobias together. It's such an awful movie. It's so campy, and it just happens to be one of my favorites because it is so ridiculous. Some people know this, but my very first job that wasn't babysitting in middle school and high school was working at the Bronx Zoo. And I did work with the snakes. So you couldn't have a phobia and do the work that I was doing. For those who don't know the story, I had done a teen internship and we learned about all the different animals, different continents and climates. We learned so much and I did really well in the internship. And they offered me a job education department. And every Saturday and Sunday, my senior year of high school, 8 a.m., to 5 p.m. I went into the education department. They had all the animals that they use in classrooms or have the classes come to them. So the animals were a little tamer, but still wild animals. And I went in and I took an animal out of its cage, put it in a relay cage, cleaned the cage, put the food in there for them, put the animal back. And if it was one of the cute animals like the armadillo or the anteater or the ferrets, I would play with them. The snakes, I took them out and I put them back. I took them out and I put them back. But the other thing is the person that I was thinking of, and she knows who she is, has a phobia about bugs. And working in the education department meant if you aren't afraid of snakes, you better not be afraid of mice and rats because that's what you're feeding them. And with the smaller reptiles, you couldn't be afraid of bugs because that's what you were feeding them. It was an amazing experience for me. It told me that I didn't want to be a vet. I didn't want that to be my career. It was great for college interviews and for college essays and stuff like that. But I realize when I talk about that experience with people, how many people are like, oh my God, you did what? So fortunately, I didn't have to forge that path. So I think it's fascinating because everything that you've said, the people that you've worked with, people who are, searching for their person, someone who is afraid of something, someone who is trying to forge their path with money, you're right. I don't think people realize exactly how much happens in our first 7 years of life that impact us for the next 70. If we don't sit down with someone like you, it may just be something that you heard over and over again. Because if you hear it over and over again, that becomes true for you.
Absolutely. I don't have a scientific way of proving this, but my guess is most of the beliefs aren't things that people were taught. It's not like a parent sits down and says, be very afraid of money. That's not what they do. It's their behaviors and the way they express their beliefs about everything that is what the children pick up. They're little sponges. They're just absorbing the rules of engagement wherever they land.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as someone who was a weight loss coach for 20 years, have you had people come to you for weight loss?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything is like you can't say, well, this is the problem, therefore this is the belief that's causing the issue. It's so individual. That's what makes it interesting. I'm a puzzle solver. And
I love that. I thought you were the person who took out the trash, but now I realize you need to figure that puzzle out before the trash goes out.
right. Most people don't know what the beliefs are. I help them find them and then they choose what they'd like to replace them with.
Right, right. I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that there are people who come to you and they know exactly where that thought had come from. But I would venture that more people actually don't know and are surprised when you get that out of them. Is that true?
Well, with what I do, it doesn't matter where it came from. So, which I love about the process because for those people with a trauma history, they don't have to re traumatize themselves to work with changing whatever the beliefs are. Just, this is what's there. This is what you would rather believe, which they tell me. I don't tell them. And we just replace it.
Do you have like a specific success story that's one that you like to share with people?
They're all of them are so much fun. I had one woman, this was kind of like a trifecta. I had one woman come with severe pain in, several parts of her body. It was numb. She had pain. Her next stop was surgery. The doctors couldn't figure out what was causing the problem, so they were going to go in and see if they could figure it out from the inside, right? And she
Mm.
came to me before that got scheduled. And so that was her goal, was to just get rid of the pain and get function back. And we did. But along the way, she also because the beliefs impact a lot of aspects of your life, right? And in the process of finding the beliefs that were creating, this reaction to the stress in her life, the physical symptoms of stress, we found beliefs that were creating a lot of stress in her marriage and that were also holding her back in her career. So by the end, she had signed up for a certain number of sessions with me. And so by the end of the 6 sessions, the pain was gone. Her marriage was better than it had been in quite some time. And she was very optimistic about where her business was going to go.
As someone who does what she does because she loves to see people succeed. First of all, I love when the light bulb goes off. Like that's the moment. That's where the success is. It's not, the end result. It's that moment where they just go poof. I would imagine it is incredibly satisfying for you to see someone have the kind of change that you just said.
Totally. That's why I do it. I'm so excited for them. Right. One of the fear of flight people was one of the cutest ones I've heard, because I don't usually hear the comments that other people in their family have. But there was somebody I worked with that was terrified of flying, and we got rid of that fear. And her husband was so excited because that meant they could plan trips in Europe or to Hawaii.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, who we are and what we do affects the other people around us, whether that's in a positive way or a helpful way or an unhelpful way. Okay, so you said 6 sessions. What does working with you look like? Is it typically that many sessions?
Usually, but she signed up for a once a month subscription offer that I do. And it's a minimum of 6 months, so she signed up for that package, is why I know
Uh-huh.
it was 6. Usually when a coach sends somebody to me, it's 1 session because they've already kind of cleared some issues are there, right? They've got some opinions on what's going on there. So often that's 1 session. Phobias, I'm pretty comfortable telling people it's 1 session. People always say, well, how many sessions will I need for this? And I don't ever know how many beliefs are creating that situation. So it's hard to say. It could be 1 session, it could be several, but it's not week after week, year after year on the same topic type of relationship.
It's not therapy. There's a big difference between therapy and coaching, because I tell people all the time, this isn't therapy. We're not going to be talking about the same thing for the rest of your life. And that's not fair. Like some people finish therapy in 2 to 5 years. Maybe they go back to it 2 to 5 years after that, but it's always based on those same roots, if you will. I kind of hear when you said that when coaches send people to you, it's kind of like the coach helps the person figure out what the trash is, what the clutter is, and you're
Yeah.
there to help them remove that out.
Yeah, which is a great partnership, right? It's
Mhm.
because I mean the client and the coach aren't happy the client's not being successful.
Right.
And the coach is frustrated that they can't, they'll agree what's going to happen and the client comes back the next week and it didn't happen, right? And it's like, what the heck? Why you said you were going to do this? And then they can get frustrated because they think the client isn't working hard enough at the thing or just didn't make any effort to do it. And
Right.
it's a lot harder than that for somebody to do that particular thing. So everybody feels a little relief if you can just get rid of whatever that barrier is and they can move forward.
100%. So, do you work predominantly with women? You have men come to you also?
Yeah, I've worked with very young people, very old people, women, men. The one thing I have learned long ago not to get too excited about as a client is accepting somebody that was sent by somebody else to change something that that person wanted them to change.
I've been sitting here thinking I know exactly who could be helped with their bug problem. As a coach, I know she's not going to do it if she doesn't want to, 1. And 2, it's not going to work if she's not doing it because she wants to. I mean, maybe sometimes we need to be pushed off the ledge. Like we're there, but we just need that one, like the toe is like hanging off. Okay, I will remember that when I talk to her.
Phobias are typically different because people generally don't want them. If they think they can get rid of them in 1 hour, it impacts them enough, they'll try pretty much anything to get rid of it.
That makes sense.
For people, like I've had people send grown adult children to me because they thought they drank too much or they should stop smoking or they should find better relationships or, that's, when I first started, I thought, oh, that's nice. They're sending people to me. And then it's like, this is terrible because we
Mm,
weren't getting success because the person didn't want to make that
right.
change.
And that makes sense too. Change takes action, and you're not going to take action if you don't believe in it. It's not, this is what I need to have happen, but I have to believe in making that happen or the methodology that I'm using. The beauty of all the people that I have coming on is that pretty much every guest I've had is in a heart-centered workplace. One method doesn't work for another. And so I like knowing that people who are listening and are looking for help, they're going to get to that episode where they say, what that person is selling is what I want to buy because I know it's going to make change. And I know there are people listening who are thinking, yeah, Judy can help me with that. Okay, so this is the podcast about clutter. And when we talk about clutter, most people immediately think the stuff. They're thinking the books and CDs and photos and paper and the tchotchkes my grandmother left me, the clothing and accessories that we're hanging on to that no longer fit us or fit who we are right now. But predominantly, the clutter is in our heads. But that doesn't mean that we all don't have a space or a place where clutter is an issue. And I tell every guest ahead of time, I'm going to ask you about your clutter. So, Judy, what's your clutter?
So until 3 weeks ago, I was as clutter-free as I have been in a long time because I moved twice in 7 months. That helps you cut down on what you move and pack and unpack considerably. Then 3 weeks ago, I invited my sister to come over to look with me at the 12 boxes of pictures that came out of my grandparents' attic. So we went through them. We got rid of 3 boxes worth of stuff, which was good. But now I really need like a gymnasium floor with a tarp to put the pictures in piles so that I can figure out what are 1 or 2 that represent this pile that we keep and get rid of all the rest of them. And I don't have that size floor. They aren't even together in boxes. Like you'll find the same people in 5 different boxes, right? So they're just sitting there looking at me at the moment. But they are in plain sight. And because I've gotten rid of almost everything else that's excess, I'm pretty optimistic this is going to happen. I'm going to have a eureka moment and I'm going to figure out how to tackle this with the least effort and mess possible.
Must be some incredible photos in there.
There are. And there are many that are of the same people looking very similarly. And my children don't, I mean, it'd be nice to have a couple of things, they would want more of my mother, their grandmother, than my grandparents, whom they never met. And there's so many. I can't tell you how many pictures there were of me. One, good. 40? We don't really need that many.
I think that's how most people's phones are now, because you hold the button down and it takes like a lot of pictures. And so I have 10 photos of the same 5 people, but one has their eyes closed in one, but the other one has it closed in another one. Or I look the same in the picture and I'm just tipping my head a little to the left, a little to the right. And, is it on my good side or is it on my bad side? But it's a lot easier on your phone. From that burst, you really only need 1 or 2 of them. So when it's physical, it can be, even harder. But the thing is that I encounter so many people for whom their only clutter is digital. The emails and the text messages, or having a hard time finding documents because they haven't been filed in folders that make sense, which is so different than the clutter we were dealing with 30 and 40 years ago.
I know. And yet I find I go as paperless as possible because it's always been easier for me to find things digitally than to figure out where I might have put them when they're in paper.
Well, sure. You came from IT. You better be good at that. It's hard for me because I want people to utilize the tools that are going to be the best fit for them. And I am a firm believer in the digital because then you don't have all of like the mess of paper. But I also, I'm no Luddite. I love technology, but I also love paper. I journal every day. I keep a paper calendar in addition to a digital calendar. I don't get the same satisfaction of like checking something off digitally as I do with my planner. And with my planner, if I do something that wasn't on the calendar for the day, I will write it down just so I can check it off because I am a firm believer in celebrating success and getting something extra done is always a form of success. And I know there are other people out there that do the same thing.
I love picking stuff off the list.
Okay, so what's something that you want to make sure that every listener who's listening right now, what do you want their takeaway to be? What's something maybe we didn't get to?
Just to understand that they should stop beating themselves up if they set these goals and they don't make the progress even though they tried. That there can be things in the way that are harder than they might have understood, and that they don't have to settle and say it's just the way I am. They can change those things. So that's what I would really like them to know. It's not their fate to always avoid the thing that keeps making them panic. They can do something about it.
I love that because, first of all, how many of us are constantly beating ourselves up for stupid things? Forget beating ourselves up for the change that we really want to see in ourselves. And we can try 62 different things. And if, every one that doesn't work makes us feel even worse for not having been able to fix it, that finding the right person using the right methodology to fit for you means you can stop beating yourself up. And you're more capable of change when you do stop beating yourself up.
Absolutely. Yeah. The stress that impacts your decision-making ability and your physical well-being. There are all sorts of side effects that do not enhance your life when you're stressed out about what's going on. So
Right.
yeah, know you can change it and get clear about what you really want. That's also a big thing. Sometimes that can be as big a help as anything else.
Do you mean, someone who comes to you, I'm going to go back to phobias again because it makes sense to me. I don't want to be afraid of snakes anymore. Why? Like, I live in New York City. Am I really going to come across a snake? But for some people, I was just watching a TV show yesterday about people who were moving off the grid in Arizona. Well, sure, that person, if they are afraid of snakes and they are moving to a place where there are rattlesnakes, and I think a lot of people who are afraid of snakes are not afraid of poisonous snakes, they're afraid of snakes, period.
Yeah, totally. And people will say, well, I don't want to love snakes. And it's like, well, I'm not going to help you love snakes. What I do is help them not get emotionally hijacked so they can choose their response when they see a snake, right? That's the difference is
The-
you get it so that they're just kind of, at peace with the concept or the actual appearance of one. And then they can choose, go towards it, go away from it, stay still and let it go away. With a phobia, you don't have that luxury of thinking through your reaction because it's just a
you, s-
phobic response.
you said emotionally hijacked. And I feel like for me, that was the big light bulb. What happens when you have these fears? You're emotionally hijacked. 100%. That was a good takeaway for me. Okay. I know I said any last thoughts and then we, digressed back to snakes. So I am going to give you one last opportunity. Any other last words that maybe we didn't talk
No,
about
I
today?
think I've used my last words up.
They're never your last. Judy, thank you for being here today. I know that everything that you had to share was incredibly powerful. And I know that there are people out there that when they listen to this, they're going to be nodding their heads and maybe picking up the phone and making a call. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Great conversation. Enjoyed it.
100%.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free. I hope you found a spark of inspiration to help declutter not just your space, but your mind and life as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little lightness in their life. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. Small steps lead to big changes, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. For more tips, resources, and ways to connect, check out my website, follow me on social media, and don't forget to check out the Design Your Healthy Life Strategy program to take your transformation even further. Until next time, keep letting go of what no longer serves you and making room for what truly lights you up.